What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Brawl Project. Today is Ikoria Preview Day, and I'll be showing you 5 of the coolest new things you can do in Brawl with the new set Ikoria. Of course, this is happening during the Ikoria Preview event, which is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast, so thank you very much for letting me have a fully stocked account and be able to mess with these things and try to figure some cool things out. In this video, it's just going to be 5 deck techs along with a few highlights from my gameplay session with MTG Landfall. Check them out, they helped me out with this video. And I'll just be going over 5 new strategies that you can play in Brawl with Ikoria. As always, deck lists are in the description. I'm also going to link to the gameplay footage with MTG Landfall. It's about an hour and a half of just raw gameplay footage. Not that many games, but we had a great time. It was an absolute blast. Crazy things happened in basically all of the games. If you like this video and you want to stay up to date with Brawl, with all the latest strategies and all the different decks that I build, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button because, well, Ikoria is sweet. I don't have a job right now, so I'll be making tons of Brawl content. Also, if there's something that I happen to miss in this video, please comment. I only had 1 day's worth of brewing in order to come up with all this stuff. I'd love to see what else everyone else has come up with. And without any further ado, let's get into it. 5 awesome new things that you can do in Brawl with Ikoria. First deck of the day, Lukka combo. Lukka is a 5 mana planeswalker from Ikoria, has 5 starting loyalty, +1, exile the top 3 cards of your library. Creature cards exiled this way gain, you may cast this card from exile as long as you control a Lukka planeswalker. -2 is exile target creature you control, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with higher CMC. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. And -7, each creature you control deals damage equal to its power to the opposing player. I'm pretty sure that's how each opponent. Okay. Anyway, what we are trying to take advantage of here is that -2 ability. Who doesn't love some chaos, especially when you can do some controlling of it? So this is the Lukka 2/7. What I mean by that is we're going to turn a lot of 2-drops into a lot of 7-drops. By making sure that we don't have anything that costs between 3 and 6, we can make sure that anytime we're activating Lukka's -2, we're going to get a 7-drop. So let's take a look at some of those 7-drops. These are the best creatures Red has to offer, and honestly, it leaves a little something to be desired, but it's a cool ability. The strategy's pretty cool, like the deck building restriction's pretty cool. We're gonna stick with it. First of all, Terror of Mount Velis. This is basically just a 5/5 flying double strike. That hits pretty hard, that kills people quickly. This is not Godzilla, this is actually Yadaro Wandering Monster. This is an 8/8 trample haste with cycling. So this one's particularly nice because when you cycle it, it actually goes back into your library, which means that if it's stuck in your hand, you're not trying to cast these 7-drops in this deck, you're trying to cheat them out of your deck. So you can cycle Yadaro, it goes into your deck, and then it's another target for you to find with Lukka. And then you attack with attack for 8. Dracuseth, this is a favorite of mine, of course, 7/7 flying, and it has that excellent on attack trigger, and good old Meteor Golem, just destroy target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So, our plan is really simple. Those are the cards those are our payoffs. How are we going to get there? Well, on turn 2, we're going to try to play a 2-drop. We have 10 of them. I'll go over them a little more in just a second. On turn 3, we're going to try to play a Mana Rock. We've got Altar, Heraldic Banner, Mana Geode, Spinning Wheel, and Arcane Signet, which is cost 2. It's better. And then on turn 4, we're going to play Lukka. We're going -2 on our 2-drop, and we're going to get a 7-drop. That's our plan. 7-drop on turn 4. Hopefully that's good enough. If it isn't, maybe we get to do that again next turn. If Lukka stays on 3 loyalty, we can play another 2-drop, go get another 7-drop. And that's the plan behind the deck. The rest of it is a bunch of removal for the most part. There are a few more things. Well, let's talk about the 2-drops first. The 2-drops aren't spectacular. I feel like the only spectacular thing about this deck is how much you're cheating on mana, how quickly you can get a 7-drop into play. The actual cards themselves might leave a little to be desired. But we've got, like Careless Celebrant. It can trade when it's not being sacrificed. Crashing Drawbridge works really well with these because 3 of the 7-drops that we have don't have haste, and Crashing Drawbridge can give haste. And then this one's a nice one, Underworld Ragehound, because the escapability means that you'll always have access to this 2-drop. Anyway, like I said, we can't play any 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, or 7s, or 6s, because otherwise we might hit them. Then we're not guaranteed a 7-drop. Now, there's definitely a case to be made that maybe the deck just functions better if you have some 5-drops to bridge the gap, and maybe you run to a 5-drop occasionally instead of going straight to a 7. That's definitely a way to build the deck, and I'm interested in trying that out, but we're just trying to go 2 to 7 with this one. Some other cool cards that you get to play in this deck that you don't always get to play: Active Treason and the Ikoria War. The threaten effects are really nice because Lukka basically sacrifices the card. Yeah, you have to have Lukka in play for Active Treason to work the way you want it to, but the Ikoria War, you can curve out the Ikoria War into Lukka. You'll still control the creature your opponent has. This deck, I don't know, like, it's a mono red deck. I've said for a while that I think that red is just generally a little weaker in Brawl, and I think that this deck is probably suffers from that as well, but it definitely does some really sweet stuff. In fact, here's a clip of what happened against MTG Landfall, where I was able to pull out a lot of damage without too much going on at the beginning of the turn. Ooh, that is 15. All right. Let me just make sure that this works the way I expect it to. Alright, 8-8 with haste? Yes, it's an 8-8 with haste. 2 elementals. A 5-1. And that is exactsies. Woo! Alright, I mean, that game couldn't have really gone a whole lot smoother. We did exactly what we set out to do. Alright, well, there you have it. That's our first deck. Perhaps low-hanging fruit. I as soon as I saw Lukka, I was like, I gotta make a deck around this. But it does some really cool new stuff. Alright, let's go on to the next one. Next up, we're going to try to harvest the power of the Eerie Ultimatum with Nethroi, Apex of Death. Again, not Biolant, or Biolant, not sure how to pronounce it. This is Nethroi. This is just the Godzilla skin of the card, which is the art and the name. Anyway, this is a 5-mana Abzan commander, well, legendary creature. Probably want to play it as a commander. I think it works very well there. It's a 5/5 Death Touch lifelink, pretty good if you just play it for 5, honestly. But the real draw to this card is it's got Mutate, 7 mana. When this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I don't think I need to explain why that's so exciting, but if you just have a bunch of, like, if you have 10 cards that all have 1 power, you get to return all of them. If you have 20 cards with 0 power, you still get to return all of them. So there's definitely some sweet potential here. How viable is it? Well, that is the question we're trying to solve with this deck. The other card that is huge in this one is Eerie Ultimatum. Costs very strict color cost there. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is Brawl. The only cards that have the same name as each other in this deck are the basic lands, and we're not playing a ton of them. So we're just going to get a ton of cards off of Eerie Ultimatum. I mean, that's basically what we're trying to do with this deck. So how are we going to make that happen? Well, we have to stock up our graveyard first. So we have Wand of Vertebrae. I've had this in a few decks that really focus on graveyard recursion, and it's okay. I think the enablers are kind of soft now in a format that has better enablers for this deck. Maybe we wouldn't play Wand of Vertebrae, but I think for here it's fine. One that I'm pretty excited about, another new card from Ikoria, Skull Prophet. It's a mana creature. It's a 3/1 that can add black or green, but it can also tap to put the top 2 cards of your library into graveyard, so if you don't need that mana, it can help fuel you up. And that's a big deal. Some other nice ones, Gorging Vulture, a card that I had forgotten about, but it mills 4 cards when it enters the battlefield. And also Mindrack Harpy. This is not one that I had had thought of until I did a really thorough search of the cards that have this type of effect. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each player puts the top 3 cards of their library into your graveyard. Hopefully you can capitalize that a little more than your opponent can. And also, one neat thing about it is that if they don't kill it, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the first trigger on your combat. If they don't kill it, you get another 3 cards, and so on. For each turn that sticks around. Ooh, you know what I'm realizing? I didn't put Command the Dreadhorde in this deck. I definitely should have. All right. The deck list that is going to be down there should have Command the Dreadhorde. Always when I take a closer look at these, I start to notice those types of things. Anyway, there's also the classic, Cavalier of Thorns, excellent. Underrealm Lich, these are cards that are pretty standard in Brawl, and they're just good cards even if they don't have any synergy, but they add to the synergy. There is the classic standard method of getting creature cards into the graveyard by playing them and having them die just naturally. Oh, one more thing. Death's Oasis, nice new enchantment for Abzan. I think this is one of the stronger 3-color enchantments in Ikoria, and definitely works well for this one. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than that creature that died from the graveyard to your hand. So it's just a good way of keeping the gas flowing, and also it does enable you a little bit by stocking your graveyard. The rest of it is a lot of creatures with some interaction. Of course, we're playing black and green. We have to play Casualties of War. This card's just so crazy. Assassin's Trophy, light removal package in Murderous Rider also. Knight of Autumn's a really nice one in this one. Oh, and another new card, Mythos of Nethroi. This one is basically destroy target non-land permanent in this deck. And that's nice at instant speed for 3 mana. I'll take that. Yeah, so that is this deck. You also want to make sure that the creatures have low power if possible. Like Tristani only has 1 power, so that doesn't count towards the count of 10 power total for Nethroi very much, and that's pretty good. So I mean, there's no killing blow here. You're just trying to outgrind your opponent by, playing any random creature. We've got a lot of those random creatures, and then mutating Nethroi on top of it and getting a ton of value, bringing a ton of stuff back. And if we can get an Eerie Ultimatum off, oh, that is just the dream. All right, so that is one of the 3 color decks that I'm really excited about. Let's go on to another 3 color deck that I'm really excited about with Ikoria. Next up, we have Sultai Mutate. This is Brokkos, Apex of Forever. Again, ignore that big name at the top. That's just the Godzilla skin. So this one is a 6/6 for 5 mana. It's got Mutate for 5, and it says you may cast Brokkos Apex of Forever from your graveyard using its Mutate ability. Now, I think that this card is going to slot very well into Yarok decks that already exist, and I think the Yarok decks do get even better with the new set. So though that's certainly a great way to use this, but you can also just use it as a commander for a Mutate deck. There's a lot of exciting cards that have Mutate in Ikoria. Some of them, let's go over them. Chittering Harvester, when this creature mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Whenever, this is Cavern Whisperer, whenever this creature mutates, each opponent discards a card. Pouncing Shore Shark, that just cracks me up every time. When this creature mutates, you may return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. And then you've got a few more. This one brings back something from your graveyard. This one you can tap the creature and start getting some value off of it. And yeah, this one searches for a basic land, destroys target artifact or enchantment. This one has the Ophidian ability, and this makes it so that mutate spells cost less and you get to loot whenever you do. So mutate's kind of an interesting ability. This deck might just be super susceptible to removal because, you make a stack of creatures and one removal spell just gets rid of all of it. So I think that you're generally just mutating. Your stack of creatures is just too big. You put something small on the battlefield, like a Burglar Rat, Incubation Druid, whatever, one of these, and then you put something big to mutate on top of it, and then I don't think you touch it further there. I think you just put one mutation on most of these, unless you really need, like, if you put a Harvester on something to have your opponent sacrifice a creature, and then you mutate something else onto it to make them sacrifice another creature, because you really need that sacrifice effect. Anyway, yeah, it's You have to be worried about getting blown out with this type of strategy. So in order to try to prevent that, we've got cards like Duress and Agonizing Remorse to try to stop our opponent from doing those things using their removal spells. We've also got Burglar Rat and Friend Lurker, but admittedly, those are they're not fail-proof. We have a lot of cards just a lot of 1 and 2 drops that would like to get mutated. The best, of course, is Zaggoth Mamba. Whenever this creature mutates, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. It's kind of like a removal spell. And yeah, that's basically the deck. It's just a bunch of creatures and a lot of creatures that you can put onto them and mutate them into for added effect. Again, not sure how good this is. I actually, and they beat me in that game, so there's definitely some potential there. I'm not sure how much you can weigh putting a lot of, getting a really powerful effect off of mutate versus the risk of losing your investment, which is definitely very, very real. So a couple of in addition to this card, a couple of measures that I have against your creatures dying to removal is unsummon. You can unsummon the stack of creatures and they all go back to your hand. Or you can Teferi's Time Twist, which exiles them, and then they all come back. I don't know if they all come back with +1/+1 counters, but that is a way of protecting your investment, if you will. Yeah, I'm excited to try this one out. I actually didn't get to play this myself, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. Can't wait for Ikoria to get onto the live server so we can all play with these cards. All right, we've got 2 more decks for you. The next one is going to be, well, it's kind of a tribal deck. All right, I promised a tribal deck, and this is the Discard Tribe. This is a bunch of cards that all want to discard. Why? Well, that is because of our commander, Rielle the Everwise. 3 mana, 0/3. Honestly, the stats don't matter for her. Rielle gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. So we're going to try to abuse the heck out of that second ability. And, well, it's definitely something that can get a little out of hand, such as when you discard 5 cards at once with a Cavalier of Flame. Then you get to draw 10 cards, like what just happened in my gameplay against MTG Landfall. We're going to shoot for the double unsummon. We're going to discard 10 cards here, or we're going to draw 10 cards here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First time you discard cards, draw that many cards. Also a million Bag of Holding, something that does 3 damage. Wow, that was a pretty unspectacular draw 10. you think draw 10 and you think, wow, I'm gonna really stick it to him. Now obviously you're hoping to have a bit of a better return on your discard than what happened in that clip, but just the potential of drawing twice as many cards as the number of cards in your hand is fantastic. And there's a bunch of ways to discard a lot of cards, like Cavalier of Flame, Neheb, Channeled Force. These are all ways that you can discard your entire hand and just draw a ton of cards with Rielle if she sticks around. Another way that is pretty good is, where is it? Cathartic Reunion. Ah, yes. Discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards. That's card neutral, normally. But if you've got Rielle out, all of a sudden, you're drawing 5 cards. If you love drawing cards, this is probably the deck for you, because you get to draw a lot of cards. You have to discard some cards in order to draw those cards, but it seems worth, if you ask me. Now, that's not the only way to discard cards in order to draw cards. We have good old Bag of Holding, which is fantastic. If we're discarding a lot of cards, they just go straight into the bag. Messes up Rielle's first ability with her her power just doesn't get much higher if all the instants and sorceries are in the bag, or all the cards that you discard are in the bag. But man, getting to discard cards and then bring them back with the Bag of Holding and then discard them again, that is truly a one-of-a-kind experience. Alright, so a lot of these cards might look like they should never be played in a constructed deck. Look at it. Well, okay, this might be somewhat playable, but look at this. Here we go. 5 mana, tap up to 2 target creatures.
Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. If you play this deck, I will give you a medal if you can actually cast this card. The point of this card is it's got Cycling 1. Somehow there are a lot of cards in this format that have Cycling 1. If you wait until turn 4 to play Rielle, you play Rielle on turn 3. On turn 4, you have 1 mana up. You use that 1 mana to cycle Frostveil Ambush. You draw a card from the cycling, and you draw 1 card of Rielle. You turn this into a 1 mana divination. That is nice. That is nice. So we're playing a lot of cheap cycling cards. Boon of the Wishgiver. Shark Typhoon's a card that I'm really excited to play with. I don't know if you're even supposed to play it as an enchantment for this deck. I guess, like, if you're running low on gas, it might be worth it, because this deck has a lot of non-creature spells, and therefore can make a lot of sharks on the cheap, I guess. Flying sharks on the cheap. But for the most part, you're just playing a lot of just anything that has the word cycling, especially if it has 1 next to it. Dranith Stinger also, there's a counterspell. This one you probably just play as a counterspell a lot of the time. But like, Go for the Blood, your creatures can't fight too well, but it has Cycling 1. Makes the cut. What else are we going to be doing with this deck? Well, we've got Terramander, seems good. Sorry, I should back up 1 step. If we're drawing a ton of cards, we want to be able to leverage that as best we can, and a good way to do that is by using cheap instants and sorceries. We've got a bunch of the cheap counter spells, we've got a bunch of the cheap red removal, and Terramander likes all those cheap instants and sorceries, so does something like Ral and Crackling Drake and Beacon Bolt. We've got a few counter spells in order to keep our opponents honest. A lot of things that have the draw 2 clause, Ironcrag Pyromancer, I guess just 2 things. This and Improbable Alliance. And yeah, that's the deck. I mean, we've got Rielle, who's going to draw us cards. Rielle plus cycling cards draws us a ton of cards. A bunch of cheap interaction, and some stuff that likes it when we're discarding a bunch of cards. Anyway, I only got to play 1 game with this deck. I only got to play 1 game with any deck that I played today, but it was cool. It was awesome. I mean, Izzet is generally just a fun color combination, and this one just churning through those cards. Oh man, it feels great. I love cycling. I think cycling's a really cool mechanic, and yeah, I'm definitely excited to play this one more. The Cycling Tribal deck. Alright, we have 1 more deck for you. It's also a tribal deck. It also has a lot of cycling cards. Let's take a look. Alright, look. 5-color good stuff with Kenrith is nothing new. But this isn't just a 5-color good stuff deck. This is Cycling Tribal. The last deck, that was Discard Tribal. This one is Cycling Tribal. We are playing so many cards with cycling. Why? What's our big payoff? Well, we've got our good friend Nethroi back, and we've got our good friend Eerie Ultimatum. We just cycle a bunch of stuff, and then we can bring it back. That's great. That's value, if you ask me. So, what are we doing here? Well, we're playing a lot of cyclers. We're playing especially the cheap cyclers that cycle for 1. This is kind of like Living End, really, except your Living End costs 7 mana, and you only have 1 copy of it. So we have a lot of cards that cycle. And this cares about cycling. This is something that can care about, like, if we're drawing lots of cards off the cycles, we can make some Krakens, and we also have the Shark Typhoon. I think this is probably a better deck for the Shark Typhoon. I'm not sure, because the other deck was trying to be pretty efficient. This one might actually, I don't know. Look, it has the word cycling on it. We're gonna play it. We've got this Easy Prey. I think this card's actually pretty good. Same with Heartless Act. That's not a cycler. Yeah, but I think Shred Sails is actually pretty reasonable. Built, another card that I think is pretty reasonable, also has cycling. Yeah, so we're just playing a bunch of cyclers. We've got the crystals. That is a whole cycle with crystals. No, whole cycle with cycling. Jeez. We're only playing 4 out of the 5, and I'll get into that in a bit. Migration Path, this is a huge, I think this card is fantastic. I mean, Circuitous Route was great, but what happened when you drew Circuitous Route when you were out of basic lands in your deck, or late in the game where you had plenty of mana? Migration Path, you get to cycle it. I mean, we're interested in both halves of the card here, really. And then the cream of the deck, we have the big cycling creatures. We've got Yadara, Wandering Monster, which was in the Lukka deck. This one, well, we'll get into this one in a bit. And also the Titaneth Risk, which is an 11/11 with cycling too. So if you can put this in the graveyard and play Eerie Ultimatum, we get a nice little payoff there. So why is this one in the deck? Well, Kenrith has this ability that says put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So if you were to say cycle this and then with the trigger on the stack reanimate it, yeah, I know you're paying 7 mana to play this 8/8 trample haste, but you also get to draw a card on top of it, and that's pretty cool. Or you could cycle it. Anyway, I managed to pull that off, and it was totally awesome. Check this out.
So I hope this works the way that I want it to do. Cycle, auto pay is fine. In response, reanimate. Oh, the instant speed reanimate. Oh yeah, there we go. And we get to draw a card. Trample, trample. Oh my goodness. Pretty happy with how that turned out.
Yeah, it's not a part of the clip, but the turn before I was able to reanimate Titaneth Rex after just playing Kenrith, and then reanimate Titaneth Rex attack, and then reanimate this isn't Godzilla. This is really going to confuse me. Yadaro and attack. Yeah, that was awesome. So what's the rest of our game plan? Say we don't have the option of going slow with Kenrith, we need something explosive. Well, we need to play a creature, and it has to be a non-human. We've got a lot of humans here, unfortunately. But this is an elemental cat. We can mutate onto this. We got Murderous Rider, and we want to slap the Nethroi on it. If we can put the Nethroi on it, kaboom, we get to get back a lot of stuff. Maybe we don't get that many creatures back, but we probably get a reasonable return on it. Or if we just cycle a bunch of things, Eerie Ultimatum brings them all back. I think that's the more explosive of the two options, and it doesn't require us to play into a certain game state. We are also playing in this one Ruinous Ultimatum. This card's insane. Like, I think most people, when they look at this card, if you can cast it, if you can fit in your deck, it can't go into that many decks. But if you can cast it, it just seems fantastic. So we're just fitting it in here. We've also got Bag of Holding in order to hold all of our cycles, so we can cycle a bunch of things, draw them back from the bag, and then cycle them again. And then, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. If we do bring back a lot of permanents, like lands or these crystals, that's great, because Kenrith loves having a ton of mana, and that's exactly what's going to happen if we cast an Eerie Ultimatum, I think. Most of the time with this one. Alright, so there's a lot of cool things you can do with all 5 colors. If you have a deck that just is really good at making mana, then you can do cool stuff. I made a build that just has 4 ultimatums, and you can play all 5, but I think that the Teamer one is not necessarily the best. Or was it the Teamer? No, the Jeskai one. Jeskai? It had 4 ultimatums. Anyway, seems like a pretty nice strategy. But like then you get into 5-color good stuff mode, and that's something that we already have a lot of. So this I wanted to be a little more creative with it and have that cycling theme and try to really take advantage of being able to cycle stuff and get some value off of it. Anyway, that's it for this deck. There are a bunch more. Check the description for all the lists that I built. I have, 5 more decks that I was able to brew today, and you can check those out. Some of them have more or less novel things going on with them. Alright, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if there's something that I missed, there's some cool way of using the new cards from Ikoria to come up with some neat strategies, comment, tell me, tweet at me. Message me on Discord, reply to my Reddit posts, whatever. Just let me know. I am really interested in seeing what everyone else has brought to the table with the new cards from Ikoria. I'm definitely looking forward to having a blast with the set. I hope you are too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a good one.